Hello and welcome to a new episode of SEO Presso Podcast. My name is Björn Darko and today I'm speaking to Juan Baron about data clean rooms and first-party data. Juan is Director of Business Development and Strategy at Decentriq, a data clean room provider from Switzerland. Previously, he was CEO and co-founder of Really AI, and he was a member of the board of International News Media Association, INMA, and Chief Digital Officer at Swiss media house Ringier, as well as Senior Director Marketing at Blink Media in New York. So SEO Presso is presented to you by Searchmetrics, a SEO and content platform for enterprise businesses. If you want to know more about Searchmetrics, go visit searchmetrics.com and don't forget to subscribe to the SEO Presso podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, and everywhere where you find good podcasts. And keep in mind, a review a day keeps the doctor away. Hello, Juan. Great to have you.
Great to see you again, man.
Yeah, it's been a long time, right?
Actually, I think we saw each other we did see each other in Berlin earlier in April of this year.
Yeah, true. When you came for business. Yeah, that's true. But since it's Sunday, 18th of September, it is 5 a.m., 5:30 actually, 5:30 p.m. And I bought a glass of white wine, Winter Sauvignon Blanc.
Cheers. This is Balvenie whiskey.
Balvenie. I love Balvenie as well. So we want to speak about data clean rooms and first-party data. And I mean, how to start, right? I think the end of the third-party cookie tracking is most probably the biggest disruption of the internet. I mean, third-party cookies have been around for, I don't know, 25 years and are actually the bedrock of digital advertising, right? And advertisers combine them with Google and Facebook profiles and data from other providers and build digital profiles of you, trying to, hunt you, get everything that you like, get everything that you buy to, give you relevant advertising. And companies were actually relying so much on all these tracking and marketing tools that are out there, that also promised us and promised advertisers that, there is no boundary of track. You can actually track absolutely everything. And now with the death of third-party cookie tracking and all the big companies like Chrome and Firefox pulling out, tracking cookies, actually, it's going to start, it is super important to find alternatives now, right? And I think there are a lot of initiatives and ideas are out there, but how, from your perspective, can companies now rethink the data strategy? What kind of alternatives are out there if you don't have third-party cookie tracking anymore?
I think the big wake-up call, obviously the launch of the iPhone, Apple from the beginning set up Apple Safari to disable third-party cookies from the get-go, right? And then as the market has actually moved and everything has shifted to mobile, it's becoming incredibly more difficult to measure traffic, whether it's advertising or whether it's even Google Analytics. It's becoming incredibly more difficult. Now, Apple changed the game with, I believe it was iOS 14. This is when they launched the Apple tracking prevention, which prevents to do like cross-site tracking or cross-app tracking. That's one of the reasons why Meta, or formerly Facebook, is under severe threat. So is Facebook and so is Snapchat and TikTok. So there are alternatives, but the market is still behind in terms of shifting or feeling the threat. The remainder, the only thing that remains is actually first-party data. It's really the relationship, the direct relationship that you have with your consumer, whether you're a brand like the New York Times and you have a real logged-in user, that is first-party data. The same thing goes for an insurance company or highly regulated companies that have built their entire business as a first-party data taxonomy that's been around for decades, which is their CRM. And now what they need to do is reinvent on that first-party data strategy as a brand to learn how to actually activate this first-party data as well for many different use cases. So there are alternatives. It's called first-party data, but we're still building that layer as well. The biggest change that you see with the demise of third-party data, it's identity. It's really gone away. Now it's a huge fragmentation on identity. Everybody has his own email. Everybody is recording my email when I log into maybe the New York Times or go to blink.ch or perhaps purchase something from a Shopify store. I'm leaving traces of my first-party data. The question is, these systems don't talk to each other. So now we're creating these mechanisms. One part of it is called data clean rooms, where we're creating mechanisms to allow these systems to connect and still allow to first-party data to be used and leveraged for many use cases.
Before we jump into the data clean room, which I find a really super interesting concept, let's pull back a bit. And, if we consider first-party data, or just explaining to the users what it is. So first-party data is essentially, collecting your own data from your own consumers and own customers, so to speak. Then we have second-party data, which is essentially you getting from data providers, market trends or, consumer behavior data that you can match with them. And then third-party data, of course, all those marketing tools that are out there. And you just said it now, the alternative would be first-party data that you need to collect. But for a company itself, how would be good strategy from your point of view? How can, companies now set up a first data strategy, and how should that look like?
So it all comes with having the mechanisms and the consent tracking mechanisms to establish this first-party data. You need to always, since the arrival of GDPR in 2018, it is quite trivial to implement consent management policies, because you can always have a customer there is going to leave if they're interested in your product and they purchase or they subscribe to your service. You need to have that customer's data on your system in order to provide the service, to support them along the journey. Now, you still need to create the right consent mechanisms to allow to use that data for a variety of use cases. So that is part of the implementation of the initial steps of the implementation of our first-party data strategy. Whether it's you're collecting everything through a CRM, which is a very traditional customer relationship management system based on a database, or there's a new crop of software called customer data platforms. These customer data platforms, what they do is that they track the 360-degree view of different levels of engagement around that particular customer, and that allows you to kind of capture different consents, different channels or attributes around that particular customer, which you can actually then enrich the data set of that particular customer, so you can use it in the future for a variety of different use cases.
So you still also, if you collect first party data, you still need to collect consent from the user that you're allowed
always.
To, right? Always, yeah.
Yeah, always. Yeah, that's one of the first rules of GDPR as well, right? I mean, you still need consent also to let the customer know that you're still going to use the data or tracking their behavior on your system in order to provide the service. You still need that first layer of consent, because otherwise a lot of your internal systems, if they are under that regulation of the GDPR, those tracking pixels, JavaScript will not fire.
I mean, it has been in the past being important to, make sense out of your own data, collect data. And, there was the saying, data is the new oil. But now I believe it's even more important to focus on it, because you can't rely on third party data anymore. So you need to collect your own data, as you said, first party data, and then most probably, attach it with second party data. Now you said it in the beginning, it's, possible to a data clean room, right? And I think, I think so. Collecting your own data is needed. That's what we clarified. But there might be situations where you need additionally data, as I said, like market trends or advertising related data, and bringing this together, so to speak, is possible to that so-called data clean room, right? That's super hyped now since the party cookie tracking vanishes. But can you elaborate a bit more what a data clean room is and what it does and how it functions?
So a data clean room, think about it this way. A data clean room is a technical playground that allows two parties or multiple parties at once to collaborate compliantly around sensitive data. So it could be, for example, a bank, like, for example, Credit Suisse or Bank of America, collaborating with the New York Times. And what the goal of a data clean room is not around enriching one profile individually with an additional data set from another company. That is actually not kosher when it comes to GDPR and compliance. So what we're talking about is actually capturing and enabling aggregated insights that are privacy preserving, and therefore you're using your first party data as a seed in the collaboration in order to then take away actionable insights that can then further be used for a variety of use cases.
I get it. Like you can connect it with other data collectors, so to speak. You're also able to, not sell your data, but also give it away to those advertisers then. And how that this work? Because from my perspective, it should be anonymized, right?
It is anonymized. So the data clean room itself doesn't anonymize the data, right? I mean, in particular, like the way the Decentriq, the company I work for, is built, it really doesn't require for you to hash emails or anything like that, because the data before you upload it, once you upload it, it remains encrypted, and you have the encryption keys in your domain, right? And the data remains encrypted even while in use. Now, the point of a data clean room is to enable that type of collaboration in a compliant way. And even if you're dealing with a second data party provider, they also want to protect their data. So the whole point of a data clean room is that you, as a data, whether you're a publisher, a brand, or a second data party provider, you can control what the data looks like when it gets uploaded, what the computation on that data looks like, going down to the SQL code, the R or the Python model, and then the output, you can also control it. And that level of control is what really generates a lot of interest, because now if you're a second data party provider, once you lend the data to somebody else in a non-secure environment, you kind of lose control on pretty much your assets. And on a data clean room, you always remain in control.
Like, can I imagine that, since it's anonymized and, bringing those data points together, so you will not be able to say, hey, it's Juan Baron. He is, 40 years old. He's male. He likes, t-shirts. He likes jeans. That's not what is possible, right? But you can build clusters around your same age and your same type of character, right?
Exactly. Aggregated insights. Exactly. So it's aggregated results. Now, there are some innovative use cases around using data partners. Let's pretend it's a publisher collaborating, for example, with an insurance company. So an insurance company has hard fact data. They know exactly who the customers are, the household income, what industry, what their job title, where they live, how many people live in the household. They have literally every single super rich data that they want to in a consumer. Now, a publisher like Bild in Germany or Blick or the New York Times or the Daily Mail, they have loads of users, but very little logged in users. So what they traditionally do, a publisher, is that they have what is called a data management platform, which helps them predict attributes. Okay, if you read football articles, it is very likely that you're a male. Those are kind of easy to predict, but it's very difficult for a data DMP or data management platform to predict, for example, household income. So what in this particular innovative use case is that the publisher goes in, puts their entire DMP data, so logged in users with all the attributes that they're predicting. And at the same time, they also upload the machine learning model. And they use the data set of the insurance company to better improve the machine learning model. So they went from predicting household income with a confidence level of, let's say, 30, 40%, and now they have 85% confidence level. So they're using that data to train the model, but they never transfer individual one-to-one profile information. And the only thing that comes out is the model out of the clean room.
Yeah. Maybe just as a side note, I was listening to a presentation the other week, and I didn't know, and I mean, it's a no-brainer, but I wasn't aware of it, that the Post in Germany is the biggest data company in Germany, because they know everything about you. They are down to the postal code. They know in this street at house number 11, there's living a guy who likes to read football, and he likes to order jeans. He likes to order blue t-shirts, because they're not only having your addresses, they're also shipping all the parcels to you. So they know what you ordered, right? And out of this, they can build very localized profiles of users, so that you as an advertiser can send specific letters or specific prospects into your postbox, because they know that's relevant for you. It's super crazy. It's a no-brainer, actually, but I wasn't aware of it.
Exactly. But as you can imagine, the reputational risk and the ramifications of the Post in Germany to being in business of reselling individual profile data. So the idea is that to put a trust layer, and that's kind of what Decentriq does with this, what we sell in the market. Yes, it's a deep tech technology, But what we sell is trust. That is what we provide, and we try to tell our customers, whether it's a Swiss bank or a publisher, that we want you to collaborate with your peers, but you need to collaborate in a trusted environment, and we are that trust layer. Because the way Decentriq is built is that when you upload your data, we guarantee that nobody can see the data, not even us, not even the cloud provider can see the data, because we use a technology called confidential computing, which is a hardware-based solution. So it's probably the most secure, trusted execution environment that exists out there in the market. So yeah, it's really, the post will be interesting. Yeah.
Maybe it's for the listeners also a bit abstract, but can you elaborate on, without naming a company, but maybe elaborate on a real use case where people or companies use data clean rooms for? What could be a real use case, or is a real use case from your clients?
So this is actually, we can be a little bit public about this one. So we are in business with one of the largest Swiss publishers called Tamedia. Their advertising arm is called Goldbach. And we also have a partnership with a company called Mato Group. And the Mato Group, one of the core products is loancheck.de. It's a salary calculator. As you know, it is very common. If you're going to go find a new job, what do? You go to the internet, you go see how much money I potentially make, and then you put out all the information, then you get really good data about how much money you could potentially ask as you're interviewing for a job, right? And they have buttloads of profiles. I think 1.6 million or something like that. So as you can imagine, it's first-party data, all consented. So, and they have every single profile information, like where they work, how much the money they make, household income, how many kids they have, what nationality, what region of Switzerland they live in. And then Tamedia has very high reach products like 20 minutes.ch. So what they've done is that they were able to overlap the audiences with a super high overlap. I think in total, there's hundreds of thousands of overlap profiles, logged in users with Mato Group data users. And there they can build, and from that, they can build lookalike audiences in a compliant way. All that can be built inside of the data clean room. And then what you do is that you don't activate individual IDs. What you do is that you activate segments. So no individual first-party IDs ever leave the clean room. It's just the segment level data. And that's what you activate across the Tamedia network.
That like I brought up as an example, right? So you get segments of user profiles that tend to have the same behavior, but you don't have email addresses, no IP addresses, and so on and so forth, right?
Exactly.
And that's why, because you said it's GDPR compliant, is that the reason why? Because it's anonymized and you don't see any personal, information about the user, right?
That is one of the reasons why it is compliant. Obviously, we take huge steps in terms of building an infrastructure that provides that guarantees that level of security and compliance. So, give you an example, we've been approved by the Swiss Data Protection Agency to use our platform. We have pharmaceutical companies running patient data or laboratory data through our platform, together with collaborating with hospital groups that is outside of media and advertising. We have banks, we have insurance companies, obviously we have publishers running data through our platform. And so it is approved and compliant through the lens of GDPR, and because of the way we build the platform from a technical perspective. So we actually co-wrote a legal opinion with one of Switzerland's more famous, most well-known legal firms around consumer privacy, called MLL. And their conclusion was that because we use confidential computing, and because no individual IDs ever leave the platform, and all the technical and privacy and security guarantees that we provide, we can actually enable consentless use of first-party data. And that's a big game changer, because now when you talk to a bank,
the data clean room itself, it is not hosted in the States or not hosted outside of Europe. You host it on your own server, right? That's where you collect it, or how's it working?
From an infrastructure point of view, it doesn't really matter where it's hosted, because the way the technology is built, so confidential computing, it's something that is already being offered by Amazon and Microsoft Azure. We've chosen Microsoft Azure because it's a much more credible partner, more sophisticated partner for the enterprise. So for very large enterprises. That
means that it is hosted in the US then, right? Because Microsoft is a US company?
No, it's hosted in Swiss servers.
Swiss servers, okay.
Everything's hosted in Swiss servers, yes. But within confidential computing, even though it's hosted inside of Microsoft Azure, the way it is hosted and the technology itself, because it's a hardware, it's literally a chip provided by AMD or Intel or NVIDIA, we can actually prove, or the Chief Data Protection Officer can actually prove that confidential computing is being used. You get logs of the usage, and we can guarantee that nobody can see the data. Not even Microsoft Azure can see the data. Not even us, which we actually build the whole software on top of a confidential computing. It's impossible. We have customers right now that we don't know what they're doing with the data clean room. And we try to find out what's an innovative use case that they're trying to accomplish. And they tell us, no, you don't need to know, because that's the reason why we license you. It's amazing. It's amazing.
You just said, like, because there's on Intel processors or AMD or stuff like that, if data clean rooms become that hype and really could become that big, then maybe it makes sense to buy some stakes in Intel or so at, get some shares, so to speak. But last question, Juan.
It's a growing enterprise solution in the cloud. It's not mobile chips right now.
I get a good idea of what data clean rooms are and, how you need to make use out of your first party data. But I mean, it sounds all good and stuff, but I guess since it's a new technology, there are also boundaries, right? Where do you see it needs to develop into the next 5 years, so to speak, to become even better than it is today?
So the biggest friction that we find in the market, and there are some major developments coming into the space. So as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, identity is now being fragmented, right? I mean, with the third-party cookie, you can inject the same third-party cookie across and follow the user across and build up a very unique profile. You never really needed that user to be logged in, right? To have a direct relationship with you. You just based everything on a third-party cookie. But now you really need somebody to log in to have a relationship with you. Otherwise, it's still an anonymized user. And that is one of the biggest challenges the industry, even outside of data clean rooms, faces, is that you have a lot of unidentified users. And there are some big players that still hold the keys to a lot of these identity profiles. For example, a telco or an internet service provider like Swisscom here or Verizon in the US. They still hold the keys to a lot of this identity, right? But that is one of the biggest challenges, because when you have a publisher like, Build, for example, and they have 30 to 50 million unique users a month, maybe if they're lucky, 5% of those are logged in. So what do you do with the remaining 95%? And when you have a Deutsche Bank, for example, wanting to collaborate with Build, and they bring all the first-party data from the customer list, which is the entire CRM, and the overlap is small, then you don't have a huge chance of success, because there's very little data to work from. So the industry is developing different mechanisms to kind of increase the match rate with identity providers. And that's one of the growing aspects now that you see in the industry around data clean rooms, is partnerships with identity providers.
Maybe just one follow up on this one, because I got stuck at one thing that you said, where you said it's, hard to, because it's so anonymized and you just have pattern, it's hard to kind of predict behavior or also recommend things. Does it mean that, with the data clean room and you're collecting your party data, maybe get second party data as well? Would you be able, because you have just a little amount of logged in users, would you be able to personalize the experience on an e-commerce platform, so to speak, for those 5% that are logged in?
Yes, you can actually. And that is what, for example, when I mentioned that example of the insurance company and the publisher working together to help improve the attributes of that publisher, you can apply the same to a personalization engine, right? Because the personalization engine is based on attributes, right? It's all about predicting behavior. And so you can literally train your model, even if it's just 5% of logged in users, it's still 5% that you can actually derive and then eventually compute or apply those attributes or newly calculated attributes to the rest of the audience based on similar pattern behavior.
Very good. Thank you so much, Juan, for bringing this completely new topic to my audience and also to my ears. Been a blast. Thank you so much for jumping on a podcast on a Sunday. Thank you all for tuning in. And we see and hear next week again on Espresso Podcast. Ciao.